Ghostbusters has been around for 40 years, but is this legendary franchise finally starting to die out? Hello everyone and welcome back to AustinPlus commentary, where today we are talking about a very depressing question, but it's something that I think it should be addressed at this very late stage of cinema, which is the Ghostbusters franchise finally dying? Now, we've had a handful, only just about a handful of Ghostbusters movies, and it's starting to flop a bit. It's so we're just trying to see if it needs a bit of CPR or if it's down for the count. So let's talk about it. So first of all, with its original impact, when these movies were released in the old days, they were very well received because they really blurred the line between monsters and comedy, making some sort of dark comedy, but it was mainly for action and comedy mixed with a sprinkle of horror. And this had been done not to the extent of Ghostbusters, because it was more to do with the horror side, with the likes of Mars Attacks, Tim Burton. But Ghostbusters was, as I said, a bit different. It was a film that kids could watch and not be scared of, depending on the child, of course, because I know there were some kids that absolutely hated Slimer and hated the marshmallow, the marshmallow puff man. So yeah, it depends on the child, really. And the best thing about it was that people could watch this in the afternoon or any other time of the day if they really wanted to. And the best way to describe it is like a blend of comedy, sci-fi, horror, and action, like I just said. Now, a lot of people at the time didn't think all of those could really go in hand, but it's now something that's taken into account these days, so it's just a one way to look at it. Now, later down the line, there was a big struggle to do with revivals of this whole franchise. The extent of Ghostbusters was that the movies were released in the 80s and then had a very long break between the 80s and then 2016 when they had a female adaptation to the Ghostbusters stories. And it was just as funny as the modern ones beforehand, at least in my eyes. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was a fairly modern and not that different Ghostbusters story. It wasn't well received because it seemed a really cheesy way to revive this sort of story, and that's why it dipped as well in terms of Ghostbusters. I do agree with the statement that it was at least watchable. It wasn't horrendous, it wasn't amazing, but it was watchable. It's not something I'm going to go back and watch again, but it is still watchable, and it's still capturing that glory of it still appeals to children and then obviously adults who probably grew up with Ghostbusters, so it doesn't really matter. But I understand, especially the people who watch the originals probably won't agree with this. Now, I will say the pure modernization of Ghostbusters came out when Ghostbusters Afterlife was released, I think in 2021, I believe, which really took the prize home in terms of box office and overall success, because it mixed in proper dark comedy horror with a very good revival of a franchise with a tiny bit of an understanding of the story, and how they link to the other movies, such as the old ones with all the other scientists, and how the kids are drawn into this. And this movie did really well with its actors, and it had a wide range of famous actors, and it tied into the story really, really well. Now, in 2024, there was a completely new story that had arisen called The Frozen Empire. In 2024, this was completely a new story, and they tried having a whole original adaptation, and that could carry on the Ghostbusters franchise. However, it was really poorly executed. The story was there for sure, and I think the intent was there as well, but they weren't really trying to be new or nostalgic, which doesn't always work in hand. And the best way to think about it is that there is a collective of rehashed jokes, and that's what I think people didn't like. They used the same tech, the same ghosts, the same jokes as well, and that's just that. There was no originality other than the story, but they tried going back to their old ways, and overall, you want to bring some more originality rather than the old stuff. So trying to bring them all together, it kind of just went kaboom. I've always said originality doesn't always go amiss. I know people are scared of new things in terms of revivals, movies such as this one. Especially it can be seen with the likes of Transformers and Fast and Furious. A lot of people don't like change, but you have to flow with the times. As I've said in previous videos a number of times, you have to flow with the way that it is receiving. Yes, you can use some of the old stuff, you can reference it for the story, then you also need to be a bit different. You've already done the revival, now you need to follow that through. But that doesn't mean you go back to where you started. That is the only piece of advice I think that can be taken from this. I don't know if they've got a third installment like in the development, but I hope there is, because I still do believe this has a chance. Now, I will say there is a future, as I've just said, for the Ghostbusters movies, because I am liking the extension of the Ghostbusters Afterlife movies in production. But I also think maybe potentially branching out into streaming shows or animated shows wouldn't actually be bad for them. And potentially moving away from the New York setting. That's overdone. That like, every single movie has taken place in New York. That there needs to be a change, other than this Afterlife that was in the desert, kind of. There needs to be a slight change. And I think that's actually why Afterlife did better, because there was a bit of a change, but the revival was still there. This should bring something different overall, because let's think about it. Without innovation, could the franchise really lose its relevance? Something to think about. But overall, right at this very moment, Ghostbusters isn't dead. Yet. But unless it learns how to grow beyond nostalgia, its future may look like its ghost it hunts. It might be fading away.
Oh no, gringe!
But everyone, that is the end of today's video. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe and comment what else you would like to see on the channel. But without further ado, hope you have an amazing day as always, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye!
Yeah.